You are a burden, my daughter-in-law screamed at me in front of everyone at my own birthday party. Her voice was so sharp that the laughter in the room froze. The music stopped. The smell of cake and roasted chicken still hung in the air, but no one moved. She stood there, her eyes blazing, pointing her finger right at me as if I were nothing but dirt beneath her shoes. I felt my chest tighten, my legs trembled, and I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. But in that same moment, I noticed something. My 10-year-old grandson Daniel had his little phone hidden behind a chair. His eyes were wide, but his small hands were steady. He was secretly filming everything. My daughter-in-law didn't know, but he captured her words, her anger, her cruelty, and even the shocked faces of the guests. That one recording would change everything. It would be my key to revenge. But before I tell you how that moment shook my life and turned into something none of us expected, let me take you back to where it all began. I was once a woman filled with joy. My husband and I built our lives from nothing. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and we had love. He passed away years ago, leaving me with our only son, Michael. Michael was my pride. I poured my life into raising him right, teaching him kindness, respect, and love. When Michael grew up, he met Anna. She was beautiful, clever, and spoke with a confidence that made people listen. At first, I thought she would be the perfect wife for him. She smiled at me, called me Mom, and even held my hand like I was precious. I welcomed her with an open heart. But as time passed, things changed. Slowly, I began to feel like a stranger in my own family. My son became busy, too busy for long talks or walks with me. And Anna, her smiles grew colder, her words sharper. Small things turned into complaints. If I forgot to switch off a light, she sighed loudly. If I offered to help in the kitchen, she rolled her eyes. Still, I kept quiet. I told myself, this is marriage, people adjust, she will come to love me in time. Then Daniel was born. Ah, Daniel, my sunshine. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and in his eyes I saw love, pure and simple. No matter how Anna looked at me, Daniel looked at me with joy. He would run into my arms, ask for bedtime stories, and laugh when I played silly games. For him, I was not a burden. I was grandma, and that was enough to keep me going. Years went by, and I swallowed the pain Anna caused me. I told myself to endure it for my son's happiness. But deep down, I noticed how the whispers in the house grew louder. She controlled everything, what Michael wore, where they went, and even how Daniel was raised. And my son, blinded by love, obeyed her every word. Still, I stayed silent. Until the day of my 70th birthday party. It was supposed to be a happy day. Friends from church came, neighbors brought gifts, and Daniel had been practicing a song he wanted to sing for me. The house was full of joy, but joy can vanish in one breath. Anna walked into the center of the room, her face red and twisted with anger. She had argued with Michael earlier, but now she turned her fire on me. She shouted that I was old, useless, and that I did nothing but take space. She called me a weight, dragging the family down. "You are a burden!" she screamed again, her voice echoing across the hall. The crowd gasped. Some guests lowered their heads, others exchanged awkward glances. I stood frozen, humiliated, and broken. My hands trembled, and tears filled my eyes. My own daughter-in-law had chosen my birthday of all days to shatter me. But in that storm of shame, Daniel's steady little hands were my light. He held his phone, capturing her cruelty. And I knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. That night, when the guests left, and I lay in my room wiping silent tears, Daniel tiptoed in. He sat on my bed, placed his phone in my hand, and whispered, "Grandma, don't cry, I recorded everything." My heart skipped a beat. I pressed the phone close to my chest, knowing that the very weapon she used to destroy me could now destroy her. But then a door slammed loudly downstairs. Footsteps thundered, and Anna's voice rose again, this time even angrier, even more dangerous than before. The slam of the door downstairs rattled the whole house like thunder. It wasn't just the sound, it was the meaning. It carried anger, warning, and danger. My heart thudded in my chest, so loud I thought Daniel could hear it. My 10-year-old grandson squeezed my hand tighter, his little knuckles pale with fear. Then it came, her voice, Anna, sharp, venomous, piercing the walls like a blade. "Michael!" she shouted, her words dripping with rage. "Do you know what your mother has done to me? She embarrassed me in front of everyone, everyone." I froze on my bed, clutching the blanket. Me? Embarrass her? The woman who had screamed at me on my birthday in front of my guests now twisted the story to make herself the victim. I shook my head in disbelief, my tears still drying on my cheeks from earlier. Daniel looked up at me with his wide eyes, whispering, "Don't worry, Grandma, we have the video." His voice was a fragile comfort, but my fear wasn't the world outside. It was inside this very house. What good was a recording if my own son refused to believe me? What good was truth if his heart was already chained to hers? Michael's deep voice boomed in reply downstairs. "Anna, stop it. Keep your voice down. Mum is old. She doesn't deserve this." For one moment, I felt relief. Perhaps my son still had my back. Perhaps Anna hadn't completely poisoned him against me. But Anna's screech tore that hope apart. "Don't tell me what I should or shouldn't do. You don't live with her the way I do. Do you know what it feels like to have her in this house day after day? She takes up space, drains our money, and does nothing. Nothing, Michael." Her words struck me like arrows. Burden. Drain. Nothing. Each one stabbed at the pieces of my heart. I wanted to cry out, to defend myself, to remind her that I gave up my youth for this family, that I raised Michael with love, that I worked 2 jobs to put food on the table when my husband fell sick. But my throat was dry, my voice was gone. Beside me, Daniel's little hand trembled in mine. He whispered again, "We'll show Daddy the truth. He'll see." I stroked his hair with shaking fingers and whispered back, "Go to your room now, lock your door." But Daniel shook his head fiercely. "No, Grandma, I'll stay." Before I could argue, the heavy thud of footsteps shook the stairs. Each step was like a countdown to disaster. Anna was coming. The sound grew louder, faster. My chest tightened, my breath quickened. Then the door burst open. Anna stood in the frame, her face red with fury, her eyes like fire. She pointed at me, then at Daniel. "You two, whispering behind my back, plotting against me, I will not have this in my house." Her words made me shrink back, but Daniel did the opposite. He stepped in front of me, his small body standing like a shield. His fists were clenched, his little voice trembling but strong. "Don't shout at Grandma." Oh, my brave boy, my sunshine. Anna's face twisted even more, as if Daniel's courage offended her pride. She took a step forward, her hand twitching in anger. For one terrifying second, I thought she might raise it against him. My blood turned to ice. I pushed myself up from the bed, standing between them, my old knees shaking. My voice cracked but held firm. "Don't you dare touch him." Anna glared at me, her eyes full of contempt. "You think you're clever, don't you? Turning my son against me. You're poison, poison in this house." Her words stung, but I would not let her break me in front of Daniel. I pulled him close and whispered, "Run, go hide the phone, keep it safe." Daniel nodded quickly and darted out of the room, his little footsteps echoing down the hall. Anna's head snapped toward him, but she was too late. The evidence was gone. Her lips curled into a cruel smile as she turned back to me. "Whatever he has on that phone means nothing. Michael will believe me, not you, never you." Her words cut deeper than knives. The thought of my son doubting me was worse than anything Anna could ever scream. My body trembled, but I refused to let her see me fall. That night, I lay awake in my bed, my heart heavy with dread. I could hear them arguing downstairs. Anna's voice carried, twisting, manipulating. Your mother is against me. She's against this marriage. She makes me miserable. Can't you see? And Michael's replies, so soft, so unsure. Too many silences, too much hesitation. My son, my only son, caught in a web spun by his wife's cruel tongue. I prayed silently, clutching my rosary. Lord, don't let him forget who I am. Don't let her turn him away from me. The night dragged on until dawn. When the first light crept through my curtains, I dragged myself out of bed. My body ached from the sleepless night, but I knew I had to face whatever waited downstairs. The kitchen smelled of fried eggs and toast. Anna sat at the table, calm, as if the night storm had never happened. She hummed under her breath, sipping her tea like a queen who had conquered her land. Michael sat beside her, stiff and distant, his eyes avoiding mine. He cut his toast but did not eat. I sat quietly at the end of the table, my appetite gone. The silence was heavy, filled with words unspoken. Then Daniel entered. My sweet boy. His face brightened when he saw me. He came straight to my side and hugged me tightly before sitting down. His small chest puffed up with courage as he looked at his father. Daddy, he said loudly, do you want to see what happened at Grandma's birthday party last night? The entire room froze. Anna's fork clattered onto the plate, the sound sharp and shocking. Michael looked up slowly, his eyes narrowing. My heart raced in my chest. Daniel reached into his pocket, pulling out the phone. His hands were steady this time. He was ready. He would show his father the truth. But before he could press play, Anna leapt across the table like a wild animal. She lunged at Daniel, her hand snatching the phone out of his grip. No! She screamed, her face twisted in fury. She held the phone high above her head, glaring at me and Daniel. You will never show him this, Daniel gasped. Give it back. Anna, Michael barked, standing up quickly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor, but Anna clutched the phone tighter, her eyes blazing with triumph. This is my house, and as long as I am here, no one will turn my son against me. Her voice shook the walls. My chest felt like it would burst. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, but behind them burned determination. He looked at me as if to say, Grandma, we can't give up. And just as Michael reached toward her, Anna raised her hand and slammed the phone against the edge of the table. The screen cracked with a sickening sound. The crack of the phone against the wooden table sounded like a gunshot. The screen splintered into a spiderweb of glass, tiny shards scattering onto the floor. For a moment, silence filled the kitchen, broken only by Daniel's sharp gasp. My phone! He cried, his little voice shaking. He scrambled forward, trying to grab it from her hands, but Anna pulled it away with a smirk on her lips. I felt my chest seize. That phone held the truth, the only proof of what had happened the night before. Without it, her lies could spread unchecked. My heart sank into my stomach. Michael's face hardened. Anna, what have you done? His voice was low, almost a growl. But Anna did not flinch. She stood tall, holding the cracked phone like a trophy. I did what I had to do, she said coldly. I will not let this family be torn apart by a manipulative old woman and her spoiled grandson. My breath caught in my throat. A manipulative old woman. That's what she saw me as. After everything, after raising Michael, after sacrificing my own needs so he could have a future, this was the reward. Daniel's cheeks flushed red, tears brimming in his eyes. She's lying, Daddy. She screamed at Grandma. She called her a burden. Everyone saw it. I recorded everything. Anna turned on him, her eyes narrow like daggers. Enough, she snapped. You're just a child. You don't understand anything. Stay out of matters that don't concern you. But Daniel didn't shrink. He stood tall, his tiny fists clenched at his sides. Grandma is not a burden. She's my best friend. I'll never stay out of it. My brave boy, my sunshine. Michael looked between us, his face torn. He rubbed his forehead, sighing heavily. This has gone too far. I don't know what's happening anymore. Anna quickly softened her tone, her anger slipping into a sickly, sweet voice as she placed a hand on his arm. Darling, don't let them confuse you. Your mother, she's stirring trouble. You know how she is, always needing attention, always making herself the victim. You have to believe me. I wanted to scream, to tell him to open his eyes, to see the truth standing right in front of him. But my throat was tight and my body trembled. Daniel looked at me, pleading with his eyes. Say something, Grandma. Don't let her win. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to come. Michael, I have never lied to you, not once in your life. Look at me. Do you think I would make this up? Do you think Daniel would? Michael's eyes darted to me, then to Anna, then to Daniel. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Anna slammed the broken phone onto the table. Even if he did record something, it's gone now, she hissed. This conversation is over. She grabbed her plate of untouched eggs and stormed out of the room, leaving behind silence as thick as smoke. Michael rubbed his temples, looking exhausted. I need some air, he muttered before walking out too, leaving Daniel and me alone. The moment the door closed, Daniel rushed into my arms. His small body shook as he sobbed. Grandma, she broke it! She broke it! I held him close, stroking his hair. Shh, my boy, don't cry. Sometimes the truth can't be destroyed so easily. He pulled back, sniffling. But now Daddy won't believe us. I smiled softly, though my heart ached. Maybe, maybe not. But I believe in something stronger, Daniel. I believe the truth always finds its way out. Always. Daniel's eyes lit up suddenly. Wait! He reached into his pocket and pulled out a tiny memory card. I took it out before she grabbed the phone. I was scared she'd break it. My eyes widened. Relief washed over me like a wave. Daniel! Oh, Daniel! I hugged him tightly. You are smarter than all of us. We both laughed through our tears, the first bit of light after a storm. But the laughter didn't last long. That evening, Anna returned with a smile plastered across her face, carrying shopping bags as if nothing had happened. She kissed Michael's cheek, spoke sweetly to him, and even pretended to play with Daniel. It was all an act, a mask to cover the fire inside her. But I saw through it. And late that night, as I lay in bed, I heard her on the phone in the hallway. Her voice was low but sharp. She's ruining everything. I can't take it anymore. If he doesn't send her away, I'll make sure she leaves one way or another. My blood ran cold. My body stiffened in fear. She wasn't just trying to silence me. She was planning something more, something dangerous. I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer, holding on to Daniel's hidden memory card like it was a lifeline. But just as I was about to drift into restless sleep, a crash echoed from downstairs, loud, violent, like glass shattering. Daniel screamed. I shot out of bed, my heart pounding in terror. Something terrible had just happened. The crash downstairs was so loud it rattled the windows. My heart leapt into my throat. Then came the sound that froze my blood. Daniel's scream. Grandma! I stumbled out of bed, my legs heavy but fueled by fear. My hand gripped the wall as I rushed toward the staircase. Every step echoed like a drumbeat in my ears. Please, Lord, protect him, I prayed silently as I hurried down. The living room was chaos. Shards of broken glass glistened across the floor, the lamp on its side, its shade bent and torn. Daniel stood near the couch, trembling, his small hands covering his face. Anna loomed over him, her chest heaving, her hand still raised as if she had just hurled something. What have you done? I cried, rushing to Daniel's side. I pulled his trembling body against mine, checking him frantically for cuts. Thankfully, he was unharmed, though the fear in his eyes was deep. Anna sneered at me. He was snooping through my things. Don't you dare defend him. Daniel shook his head fiercely, clinging to me. I wasn't. I was looking for my toy car. She's lying, Grandma. I glared at Anna. He's a child, a 10-year-old child. And you think throwing glass is the answer? Her lips curled into a cruel smile. Maybe if you controlled him better, he wouldn't make me so angry. Anger rose inside me like fire, hotter than I'd ever felt before. But before I could unleash it, Michael rushed into the room, his eyes wide at the sight of the broken glass. What happened here? He demanded. Anna turned on the waterworks instantly. Her voice softened, her eyes filled with fake tears. Michael, he was destroying the house. He knocked the lamp over. He screamed at me. I was only trying to calm him down. Daniel pulled away from me, his face red. No, Daddy, she threw it. She's lying. Michael's eyes darted between them. His face was full of confusion, torn between his wife and his son. He opened his mouth, but Anna cut in quickly. Michael, you need to choose. It's either her... She pointed at me with trembling fingers. And this unruly child she's turning against me, or it's me. I will not live another day like this. The words hung in the air like poison. My heart stopped. Was she truly giving him an ultimatum? After all these years, after the life I gave him, my son was being forced to choose between his wife and his own mother. Michael rubbed his forehead, pacing back and forth. This has gone too far, he muttered. I held Daniel close, his tiny body shaking. His eyes searched mine as if asking, will Daddy defend us? I wanted to believe he would, but Anna's grip on him was strong. Finally, Michael turned to Anna. Enough. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Right now, I want everyone to go to bed. Anna opened her mouth to argue, but his tone left no room. She stormed out of the room, muttering under her breath, leaving a trail of tension behind her. Michael sighed, his shoulders heavy. He looked at me for a moment, just a moment, but then he turned away and walked upstairs without another word. The silence that followed was suffocating. I knelt down to Daniel's level, brushing his tears away. Are you hurt, my boy? He shook his head. No, but I'm scared, Grandma. What if Daddy believes her? What if he makes you leave? I pulled him into my arms. Then we will stand with the truth. Do you still have the memory card? He nodded quickly and pulled it out from his pocket, showing it to me like a precious gem. I smiled, though my eyes brimmed with tears. Then we still have hope. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind outside, felt like danger creeping into the room. I kept Daniel close. His small body curled against mine, the memory card hidden under my pillow. The next morning, the house felt colder than ever. At breakfast, Anna sat at the table with a smile so sweet it was sickening. She poured orange juice into Michael's glass, placed toast on his plate, and even tried to kiss Daniel's cheek, though he pulled away. She acted as though the night before had never happened. Michael sat silently, sipping his juice, his face unreadable. I kept my eyes on my plate, my heart pounding with the weight of the secret under my pillow upstairs. But then Anna spoke, her voice sharp beneath the honey. Michael, I've decided. Either your mother leaves this house or I do. Today. The room froze. My fork clattered onto the plate. Daniel's eyes widened. Michael's face darkened. He slammed his glass onto the table, spilling juice everywhere. Enough, Anna. Do you think I don't see what you're doing? Do you think I'm blind? For the first time, Anna looked shaken. What are you talking about? Michael stood, his eyes blazing. I've been quiet too long, but last night I stayed awake. I heard you on the phone. You said you wanted her gone. You said you'd make sure of it. Do you deny it? Anna's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Daniel grabbed my hand tightly, whispering, Daddy believes us. But before anyone could speak again, Anna's eyes darted to me, her face twisted with rage, the mask falling away. She lunged across the table, her hand reaching for my throat. You will regret this, Margaret. Linda's voice thundered through the walls of my small sitting room as she slammed the front door so hard that the glass panes rattled. The veins in her neck bulged with rage, her eyes darting from me to the phone in my hand. My hand shook slightly, not because I feared her words, but because of what I had just revealed. The video, yes, the very video Daniel had filmed, was no longer a secret hidden on a device. I had shown it to her face. She had seen herself screaming at me on my birthday, calling me a burden. She had seen her cruelty captured in perfect clarity, and now she knew the truth. I was no longer silent. For a moment, the room fell still, except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. My heart thudded in my chest, but my mind was sharper than ever. I was not afraid. I knew the war had begun. I lowered my voice, firm but calm. Linda, the world will know who you really are. Her lips curled into a snarl. She jabbed her finger at me. You dare threaten me, old woman. I'll make sure you're tossed out of this house. Don't forget, this is my home now. You're nothing here, nothing. She stormed out, her heels clattering on the tiles, leaving the smell of her expensive perfume mixed with bitterness behind her. But as the door slammed shut, I whispered to myself, "This isn't your victory, Linda. This is only the beginning." Now let me take you back to how things unfolded before this fiery confrontation. After the birthday disaster, days crawled by in silence. I stayed mostly in my room, nursing both the sting of her words and the ache in my bones. Linda walked around the house like a queen, holding her head high, pretending as though nothing had happened. She greeted visitors with her charming smile, baked cookies for church ladies, and even told the neighbors how much she loved and respected me. But I knew the truth. Behind those smiles was venom. Daniel, sweet Daniel, never let me feel forgotten. Every afternoon after school, he would rush into my room with his school bag still hanging off one shoulder, flop onto the bed, and talk about his day. He had questions, always questions. Grandma, why is the sky blue? Grandma, do you think animals pray? His innocence healed wounds Linda's words could not, yet I could see his little heart carried worry. He often asked, Grandma, do you think Mommy hates you? I always smiled and shook my head, even when my heart knew the truth. But then one evening, while Linda was away at a party, Daniel whispered something that changed everything. Grandma, he said, clutching his tablet tightly, do you want me to show you something? I looked at him, curious. What is it, my dear? He tapped on the screen nervously. I saved the video, the one I took of Mommy yelling at you on your birthday. I didn't want anyone to see it until you wanted them to. My eyes widened. My breath caught in my throat. The video. I had thought it was gone, maybe erased or forgotten. But here it was, tucked safely in his little device, like a treasure chest hiding a weapon. He pressed play, and there it was. The laughter of the guests, the clinking of glasses, then the sudden eruption, Linda's shrill voice, her finger pointing at me, her words echoing, "You are a burden, Margaret." Every sound, every expression, captured with chilling clarity. I gasped. It was real, the proof of her cruelty. Daniel's eyes searched mine. Grandma, should we delete it? I placed my wrinkled hand over his. No, my darling, this is not a curse. This is a gift. One day, this video will speak louder than my voice ever could. From that moment, I knew my revenge was not about shouting or fighting back in anger. It was about patience, timing, letting Linda's own poison expose her. The following weeks were tense. Linda grew bolder in her mockery. She would whisper insults under her breath when Daniel wasn't around. Sometimes she would forget to serve me meals, pretending it was an accident. Other times she would hide my glasses or cane, laughing as I stumbled around. But what she didn't know was that I was preparing. Quietly. I began to confide in Daniel, but carefully, so he wouldn't feel burdened. I taught him small lessons, like how truth can be hidden but never erased. He was only 10, but I could see the spark of wisdom in him. He carried a courage that reminded me of my late husband, God rest his soul. Then one Sunday, an opportunity appeared. Our church announced they would host a family appreciation day. Families would gather, share stories, and even show photos or videos that celebrated their bonds. Linda, eager for attention, quickly volunteered our family. "We'll be the star of the program," she bragged, her voice dripping with vanity. She spent hours picking outfits for herself and Daniel, rehearsing lines about how much she adored her dear mother-in-law. The hypocrisy was enough to make me choke, but that was when the idea struck me. What if the truth came out, not in whispers, but in front of the whole community? I told Daniel, maybe this is the day the world sees who your mother really is. His eyes widened, but he nodded bravely. "I'll help you, Grandma." And so, the plan was set. The day of the event came. The church hall was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of fried chicken and jollof rice. Families sat proudly together, some showing photo albums, others performing skits. Linda, glowing in her red dress, held Daniel's hand and smiled for everyone, waving like a queen in a parade. When it was our turn, Linda strutted to the stage, pulling Daniel along. She began her speech, praising herself for being a caring daughter-in-law who looked after her husband's dear mother with love. The crowd clapped politely. I sat there, my heart pounding. My cane trembled in my hand. The truth sat quietly in Daniel's tablet, tucked safely in his pocket. Then, as Linda boasted about how much she respected me, Daniel's little voice cut in. "Can I show something, Mummy? It's about Grandma." Linda froze, her painted smile stiffening. "Not now, Daniel." But Daniel was already walking to the projector table. He looked at me once, and I gave him the slightest nod. He plugged in his tablet, and suddenly the hall was filled with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. Then Linda's voice screaming, "You are a burden, Margaret!" The room fell silent. Gasps echoed, mouths dropped open. The image of Linda, red-faced with anger, pointing at me in front of birthday balloons, filled the screen. Her words cut through the hall like knives. Linda's face drained of colour. She rushed to the stage, fumbling for the tablet. That's not real. It's fake. Someone edited this." But it was too late. The crowd had seen. They had heard. And then slowly the whispers began. How cruel! On her birthday? Poor Margaret. The pastor shook his head in disappointment. Some of the women in the choir covered their mouths in shock. Even Linda's closest friends turned away. I sat there, calm, my heart steady. The truth had spoken. But just as I thought the worst was over, Linda spun toward me, her eyes blazing with fury. "You old witch!" she screamed, her voice trembling with rage. "You planned this. You and your brat. You think you've won? I'll destroy you both." The hall erupted in chaos. People rushed forward to calm her, but Linda shoved them aside, charging toward me. And just as she raised her hand, a loud voice boomed from the back of the hall. "Enough, Linda!" Everyone turned. Standing there was my son, Linda's husband, who had returned earlier than expected from his trip abroad. His eyes were fixed on her, cold and sharp. The hall went silent, and my heart skipped a beat. "Enough, Linda!" The voice cracked like thunder through the church hall. All heads turned, necks craning to see who had spoken. And there he was, my son, Robert, standing tall at the back of the hall, his suitcase still in hand, his face drawn with exhaustion, but his eyes blazing with fury. The moment his gaze locked onto Linda, the colour drained from her face. Her hand, still half raised in the air, dropped like a stone. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "Robert," she stammered, her voice suddenly soft, almost childlike. You weren't supposed to be home yet." Robert's eyes darted to me, then to Daniel, then back at Linda. He had heard enough. The projector screen still glowed behind her. frozen on the frame of Linda screaming at me on my birthday. The room was heavy with silence, the kind that presses down on everyone's chest. "Is this true, Linda?" Robert's voice trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of betrayal. "You humiliated my mother like this?" The whispers in the hall grew louder. Linda's lips quivered. She tried to smile, but it looked like a mask slipping from her face. "Robert, it's not what you think. Someone must have edited—" "Don't lie to me." Robert's roar made even the pastor flinch. His suitcase dropped with a loud thud against the wooden floor. He took a step closer, his fists clenched. "I heard everything. I saw it with my own eyes. That was your voice, Linda. Those were your words." Linda's eyes darted desperately around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to defend her. But the congregation looked away. Her friends shifted uncomfortably. The choir members whispered behind their hymn books. No one spoke for her. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they weren't the tears of guilt. No, these were tears of fear. Fear of being caught. And then, in that very moment, something extraordinary happened. Daniel, with a bravery I had never seen in a child so young, walked up to his father. He held his small head high, his voice clear. "Daddy," he said, "I filmed it. Mummy really said those things. I kept it because I didn't want Grandma to suffer anymore." The entire hall gasped. Robert's jaw tightened. He pulled his son into his arms, shielding him. His voice cracked as he whispered, "You're so brave, son. So brave." Linda stumbled back, her face pale as chalk. "Robert, please, I didn't mean it. She makes everything so difficult. You don't understand." But Robert cut her off, his voice like fire. "She's my mother, Linda. My mother. How dare you treat her this way?" The service ended in chaos. People whispered, some glaring at Linda, others patting me gently on the shoulder. I felt a rush of strength inside me, not because Linda had been exposed, but because I was no longer invisible. The truth was finally out. When we got home that evening, the house felt different. Robert sat quietly at the table, his hands folded, his face dark with thought. Linda hovered near the kitchen doorway, wringing her hands, trying to speak but finding no words. I sat in the corner, Daniel leaning against me, his small hand in mine. The silence was heavy, but it was a silence filled with power. Finally, Robert spoke. His voice was calm, but each word cut like a blade. "Linda, pack your things." Linda's eyes widened. "What? No, you can't mean that. Robert, please, I'm your wife, the mother of your child." "And yet," Robert said coldly, "you had no respect for the woman who raised me. You disgraced her in front of the entire community. You poisoned this house with your cruelty. I will not allow it any more." Linda fell to her knees, sobbing, clutching at his legs. "Please, Robert, don't do this. I'll change. I'll be better. Don't throw me away." Robert stood, shaking her off like dust. "This isn't about throwing you away. This is about protecting my mother and my son. You've shown your true self, Linda. I won't let it continue." I sat quietly, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to speak, to stop this storm, but another part of me knew it had to happen. The truth had consequences, and Linda was finally facing hers. But then Daniel, sweet innocent Daniel, looked up at his father with tears in his eyes. "Daddy, please don't make Mommy go. I don't want her to go. I just wanted her to stop being mean to Grandma." His words pierced the room like a knife. Robert froze, torn between justice and mercy. Linda's sobs grew louder, her eyes pleading desperately. For a long, heavy moment, no one moved. Then Robert sighed deeply and sat back down. His voice was firm but softer. "Linda, you will not leave this house tonight, but things will change. From now on, you will show my mother the respect she deserves. If you don't, I swear, you will not stay under this roof." Linda nodded furiously, wiping her tears, promising over and over that she would change. But deep inside, I knew those promises were empty. For a few days, peace seemed to settle in the house. Linda acted sweetly, serving me tea in the mornings, smiling when she spoke to me, even calling me Mother instead of Margaret. To outsiders, it looked as though everything was healed. But I could feel it in my bones, the calm before a storm. One night, as I was preparing for bed, I heard muffled voices in the living room. I crept closer and saw Linda whispering on the phone, her back turned. Her words chilled my blood. "I can't stand her anymore. She's ruining everything. I don't care what Robert says. I'll find a way to get rid of her. Permanently." I gasped silently, my hand flying to my mouth. She wasn't broken. She wasn't sorry. She was planning something darker. The next morning, Linda's smile was wide and sugary. "Mother," she said sweetly, "why don't you join me for tea in the garden this afternoon? Just the two of us. It'll be lovely." Her eyes glistened with something sharp, something dangerous. And in that moment, I realized Linda wasn't done with me. She was only getting started. That afternoon, as I sat in the garden, the sun warm on my skin, I noticed Linda pouring the tea. Her hands shook slightly. She smiled too wide, her eyes never meeting mine. When she handed me the cup, a strange smell drifted from the liquid. Something bitter, something off. I looked at the cup, then at her. Her smile froze. "Drink, Mother. It's a special blend, just for you." I raised the cup slowly to my lips, my eyes fixed on hers. And just as the liquid touched my mouth, Daniel's voice shouted from the doorway, "Grandma, don't drink that! Grandma, don't drink that!" Daniel's voice rang through the garden like a siren. My hand froze mid-air, the teacup trembling dangerously close to my lips. Drops of the bitter liquid clung to the rim, shimmering in the sunlight. Linda's eyes snapped toward him, wide with panic. "Daniel," she snapped, "go back inside. This is grown-up time." But Daniel didn't move. He stood in the doorway, his little chest heaving, his eyes fixed on the cup in my hand. "Don't drink it, Grandma. I saw her put something in it." The world stopped. The garden grew deathly silent. Even the birds seemed to pause their songs. My eyes, still locked on Linda, narrowed. Her smile faltered, cracking at the edges. For a split second, I saw it, the raw fear beneath her mask. I slowly set the cup down on the table, my fingers steady though my heart thundered in my chest. "What?" I whispered, my voice colder than the wind. "Did you put in this tea, Linda?" Her face flushed red. "That's ridiculous. He's a child. He doesn't know what he saw." Daniel ran forward, grabbing my arm as if to shield me. "I saw it. She poured something from a little bottle before she brought it outside." His voice trembled, but he didn't back down. "She was trying to hurt you, Grandma." Gasps escaped my own lungs. My body shivered, not from weakness, but from fury. Linda slammed her hand on the table, making the teacup rattle. "You lying brat! How dare you accuse me?" But the truth was already written across her face. The trembling hands, the darting eyes, the sharpness in her tone, it was all there. I rose slowly, leaning on my cane, my eyes never leaving hers. "Linda," I said softly, dangerously, "you wanted to poison me in my own garden, at my own table. After everything." Her lips quivered, but she said nothing. And then, before another word could be spoken, Robert's voice boomed from the doorway. "What is going on here?" Robert had returned from running errands earlier than expected, and he stood now, his face twisted with confusion and anger. His eyes darted from the untouched cup of tea to my trembling hands to Linda's pale face. "Answer me," he demanded. Linda rushed toward him, grabbing his hands, tears spilling instantly. "Robert, please, you have to believe me. Your mother and Daniel are turning you against me. They hate me." "They'll say anything." But Robert's eyes narrowed at her desperation. He bent down, picked up the teacup, and sniffed it. His nose wrinkled. "What's in this?" Linda shook her head furiously. It's just tea. I made a new blend. Robert glanced at me, then at Daniel, who clutched my skirt tightly, his little face wet with tears. Daddy, Daniel said in a choked whisper, I saw Mommy pour something in it. I swear I saw it. The veins in Robert's temple throbbed, his jaw clenched. For a long, heavy silence he stared at Linda, who fidgeted under his gaze. Then, suddenly, he stormed into the house and came back moments later with a small testing kit he used for checking food and water safety, something he always kept from his travels. He dipped the strip into the tea. Seconds later, the strip turned a sickening dark color. Poison. The garden erupted in gasps. Mine, Daniel's, even Robert's sharp intake of breath. Linda collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. It's not what you think. I just wanted peace. I thought if she was gone. Her voice cracked into a scream. Robert's face twisted with rage. You tried to kill my mother in front of our son? His voice thundered across the garden. You are a monster, Linda. I held Daniel close, shielding him from the storm of his parents. But my heart ached, not just for myself but for my grandson, caught in this terrible war. The hours that followed were a blur. Robert called the police, officers arrived, questioned Linda, and took the tainted tea as evidence. Linda begged, pleaded, wailed, but they led her away, her wrists cuffed. Neighbors gathered at the gates, whispering, shaking their heads. I thought it was over, that justice had been served, but I was wrong. The next morning, Robert sat at the kitchen table, his face buried in his hands. Daniel sat silently beside me, his small hand clutching mine. They let her go, Robert said suddenly, his voice hollow. My heart dropped. What do you mean? She was bailed out. She's back in her parents' house. His voice trembled with anger. They said there isn't enough evidence yet for an arrest. She's denying everything, claiming it was some kind of herbal experiment gone wrong. Daniel gasped. So she's free. She can come back here? Robert slammed his fist on the table. Over my dead body. She will never set foot in this house again. But even as he said it, I knew Linda wasn't the kind of woman to give up quietly. For a few days, we lived in a tense peace. Robert busied himself with work, Daniel clung to me every moment, and I tried to restore some sense of normalcy. But at night, I often lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering when Linda would strike again. And then, one evening, the strike came. Daniel was asleep in his room, the soft hum of his nightlight filling the air. Robert was working late in his study. I sat alone in the living room, knitting quietly, when I heard it. Tap, 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 a sound at the window. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head, and there, in the darkness beyond the glass, two eyes glowed back at me. Linda! Her face was twisted with rage, her hair wild, her makeup smeared. She pressed her hand against the glass, her lips moving silently, mouthing words I couldn't hear. I stood, my cane trembling in my grip. My heart hammered. She was here. She had come back. Then, suddenly, she pulled something from her coat pocket, a small glinting object that caught the moonlight. A knife. She raised it slowly, pressing it against the glass. And with one swift motion, crack! The glass splintered, a jagged line spreading across the window. Margaret! She screamed, her voice piercing the night. If I can't live in that house, then none of you will. The sound jolted Daniel awake. He ran into the living room, his eyes wide with terror. Robert rushed from his study, his face pale as chalk. And Linda, crazed and furious, raised the knife higher and drove it straight through the weakened glass. The knife pierced the glass with a sickening screech, shards tumbling like raindrops onto the floor. The sound ripped through the house, making Daniel scream and clutch my skirt in terror. Linda! Robert's roar shook the walls. He leapt forward, grabbing a heavy vase from the table as a weapon. His eyes blazed with fury. Get away from this house. But Linda's face was a mask of madness. The jagged crack in the window widened as she pushed harder, her wild eyes never leaving mine. "You ruined everything, Margaret," she shrieked. "Everything. This house, my marriage, my life. You will pay." The knife punched through the glass again, widening the hole. Cold air rushed into the living room. I clutched Daniel tighter, whispering, "Stay behind me, my dear. Stay behind me." My cane trembled in my hand, but my heart stood firm. Robert charged toward the window, slamming the vase down hard against Linda's arm as it reached through. She shrieked in pain, dropping the knife for a moment. It clattered against the porch outside. But her fury did not waver. She pounded the glass with her fists, screaming like a woman possessed. Neighbors' lights flicked on, dogs barked. Somewhere, a car alarm blared. The entire street was waking up to Linda's madness. "Call the police!" Robert shouted, his voice frantic. My trembling hands fumbled for the phone, but before I could dial, Linda slammed her shoulder into the weakened glass. With a deafening crash, the window gave way completely. Shards sprayed across the floor like rain. Linda stumbled inside, her eyes blazing, her hair wild. She snatched the knife again from the porch and stormed toward us. Her steps heavy and unhinged. Daniel screamed, clutching me tighter. My heart nearly gave out. But Robert stepped between us and her, holding the broken vase like a shield. "Touch them, Linda, and I swear you'll regret it." Her laugh was chilling, sharp as broken glass. "You'd fight me for her? For this old witch who's poisoned you against me?" Robert's voice thundered. "She is my mother." For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Linda's hand shook, her face twisted in rage. And then, with a sudden terrifying scream, she lunged forward, knife raised. Time slowed. I pulled Daniel behind the couch, shielding his small body with mine. Robert swung the vase with all his strength. The two collided, the knife slashing, the vase shattering into 1,000 glittering pieces. Robert cried out, stumbling back, clutching his arm. Blood trickled down his sleeve. The knife had grazed him. "No!" Daniel screamed, tears streaming down his face. He ran forward, despite my desperate cry, "Stay back!" But before Linda could strike again, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance. Blue and red lights flashed through the curtains. The neighbors had called. The police were coming. Linda froze, her eyes darting toward the lights. For the first time that night, fear flickered across her face. She turned and bolted, darting out the shattered window into the night. Robert collapsed to the floor, groaning in pain. I rushed to his side, pressing my scarf against his wound. "Stay with me, my son. Stay with me." Daniel sobbed, clutching Robert's other hand. "Daddy, don't leave us." Moments later, the police burst in, guns drawn. I screamed, pointing to the window. "She went that way. She tried to kill us." Two officers chased into the night, while another crouched beside Robert, radioing for an ambulance. My living room was a sea of shattered glass, blood, and chaos. But the worst part wasn't the blood. It wasn't the broken window. It was the knowledge that Linda was still out there, angry, desperate, and dangerous. The hospital was a blur. Robert's wound was stitched, and the doctor assured us it wasn't life-threatening. He would recover. Daniel stayed glued to his father's side, refusing to sleep. Meanwhile, the police came in and out, taking statements, asking questions, assuring us they were searching the area. But Linda was gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. Days passed. The house felt like a prison. Every creak of the floorboards made Daniel jump. Every shadow made me grip my cane tighter. Robert grew restless, pacing, his face pale from both pain and fury. "She's planning something," he muttered one night as we sat in the darkened living room. "I know her. She won't stop until she gets what she wants." "What does she want?" Daniel asked softly, his eyes wide with fear. Robert's voice was bitter. "Control, power. She doesn't care about family. She just wants to be the center of everything, even if it means destroying us." I placed my hand gently on his. Then we must be smarter than her, stronger. She may think we are weak, but she doesn't know what love can do. Love is stronger than hate, Robert. Always. But Linda proved us right sooner than we expected. It was a week later, in the dead of night, when the first sign came. A letter slipped under our door, scrawled in jagged handwriting. You think you've won. But this isn't over. The house, the boy, the life, you'll all pay. Robert crumpled it in his fist, his teeth clenched. She's watching us, somewhere close. The police increased patrols in the neighborhood, but their reassurance did little to ease the dread in my chest. I could feel Linda's presence like a shadow, lurking just beyond the walls. And then came the second blow. Robert's boss called, informing him that Linda had shown up at his workplace, spreading lies. She claimed Robert was abusive, unstable, and unfit to care for his family. She even accused me, an old woman, of manipulating him for money. The gossip spread like wildfire. Neighbors whispered, friends avoided eye contact. The community that had once pitied me now seemed uncertain, their trust shaken by Linda's venom. It was her revenge. If she couldn't destroy us with violence, she would do it with lies. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Robert slammed his fist on the table. I can't take this anymore. She's poisoning everything, even when she's not here. Daniel's little voice broke the tension. Daddy, what if we show everyone the truth again, like we did at church? We still have the video. We still have the proof. I looked at him, my heart swelling with pride. Such a small boy, yet so brave, so wise. Robert's eyes softened. He looked at me. Mother, maybe Daniel is right. Maybe the only way to end this is to let the world see the real Linda, not just at church, everywhere. My pulse quickened. You mean the internet? He nodded. Yes, social media, news outlets. If we share the video wide enough, Linda won't be able to twist the truth anymore. She'll be exposed for what she truly is. It was a dangerous plan, but perhaps it was the only way. That night, Robert sat at his computer, uploading the video, writing the story, sharing the truth with the world. Daniel sat beside him, watching with hopeful eyes. I sat in my chair, clutching my cane, praying silently. But as the video spread online, gaining attention, gaining comments of support, I felt a chill creep down my spine. Because I knew, somewhere out there, Linda was watching too. And Linda was not the kind of woman to accept defeat. It was 2 nights later when the real nightmare began. The house was quiet. Daniel slept peacefully in his room. Robert dozed in his chair, exhausted from work. I sat knitting softly in the lamplight. Then, bang! The front door shook violently, once, twice. Then it burst open with a deafening crash. Linda stormed in, her eyes wilder than ever, her hair tangled, her clothes torn. But this time she wasn't alone. 2 men followed behind her, their faces hidden beneath hoodies, their hands gripping metal pipes. Linda's voice rang out like a demon's scream. You humiliated me. You destroyed my life. Tonight, Margaret, you and your precious son and grandson will pay. The men fanned out, their weapons gleaming under the light. Robert leapt to his feet, shielding me instinctively. Daniel, woken by the noise, rushed into the hallway, his face pale with terror. And Linda, her eyes locked on me, raised her hand and pointed. Take her first. The 2 men advanced, their steps heavy, their shadows long. The 2 men advanced, pipes raised, their footsteps echoing like war drums on the wooden floor. Daniel screamed, rushing back toward me. Robert stood tall, though his body still weak from his healing wound. Stay back, he roared, spreading his arms to shield me and Daniel. His voice cracked with fury and desperation. Linda's laughter filled the house. Yes, let's see how much of a hero you are now, Robert. Fight 2 men at once for your precious witch of a mother. The men swung their pipes. Robert ducked, the whoosh of metal barely missing his head. He countered with a desperate punch, landing a blow on one man's jaw. The thug staggered, but the other swung, the pipe slamming into Robert's shoulder. He groaned, collapsing to one knee. "Daddy!" Daniel cried, trying to run forward. I grabbed him back, clutching my cane with trembling hands. My heart thundered in my chest. I was blind, but I was not helpless. Summoning all my strength, I lifted my cane and swung it blindly toward the sound of footsteps. The tip cracked hard against a shin. One man yelled, stumbling backward. Linda shrieked, "Fools! Get her, grab the old woman!" The other thug advanced, his pipe raised high. Daniel screamed, throwing himself in front of me. "Don't hurt my grandma!" he shouted, his small body trembling. For a split second, the man froze. His pipe hovered in the air. His eyes flickered, hesitation, doubt, humanity. But Linda's voice tore through the moment. "Do it! Do it now!" The man's grip tightened again. My breath caught. The pipe began to fall, and then bang! The front door exploded open again. Police stormed inside, guns drawn, flashlights blazing. "Drop your weapons, now!" The men froze, startled. One dropped his pipe immediately. The other hesitated too long. A warning shot split the air. He threw the weapon down, raising his hands in surrender. Linda screamed, thrashing wildly as two officers grabbed her arms. "No, let me go. She deserves to die. They all deserve it." Her hair flew across her face, her body writhing like a snake. But the handcuffs snapped around her wrists with a final, cold click. "Linda Johnson, you're under arrest for attempted murder, assault and trespassing," the officer declared firmly. The men were cuffed too, dragged away like ragged shadows. The chaos of the moment blurred into the blinding lights of justice finally arriving. Daniel clung to me, his tiny body shaking. Robert groaned, clutching his bruised shoulder but still standing tall. It was over. The days that followed felt like waking from a nightmare. Linda was held without bail. The men confessed, admitting she had paid them to teach us a lesson. The evidence, the video from the church, the neighbors' testimonies, the police reports, stacked against her like a mountain she could never climb. For once, her lies could not save her. The news spread. Reporters called. Neighbors came with apologies, admitting they had believed Linda's whispers but now saw the truth. Some brought food, others offered prayers. The house that had felt like a prison now filled with warmth again. Robert returned to work, his head held high. His boss, after seeing the evidence, reinstated him with honor. "You stood for the truth," he said. "We need men like you." Daniel, though shaken, grew braver. At school, he told his friends, "My daddy saved us, and my grandma too." His little chest puffed with pride, and the fear in his eyes slowly faded. As for me, I sat often in my chair, my cane across my lap, listening to the sounds of my family laughing again. The scars of that night would never leave, but they became part of a larger story. A story of survival, of love, of faith stronger than hate. Months passed. The trial came. Linda entered the courtroom in chains, her face pale, her eyes still wild with bitterness. She glared at me across the room as if her hatred alone could pierce my skin. But I did not glare back. I lifted my head, leaned on my cane, and stood steady. For I knew something she never understood. Hate cannot kill love. The judge's gavel thundered. Guilty on all counts. Linda screamed as she was led away. "This isn't over. I'll come back for you." But her voice no longer had power. The chains rattling on her wrists told the truth. Life slowly returned to peace. The broken windows were replaced. The blood was cleaned. The memories, though painful, turned into lessons whispered to Daniel at night when he asked why people can become so cruel. I told him, "Hurt people hurt others, but healed hearts heal the world." He would nod, his little eyes wise beyond his years. "That's why we have to love more, Grandma, even when people don't love us back." I would kiss his forehead, tears in my blind eyes. "Yes, my dear, that is the secret." But one evening, long after the trial was over, long after the neighborhood had settled back into calm, I sat alone in my chair, knitting softly, when the phone rang. I lifted the receiver. A voice whispered on the other end. "Margaret, did you think prison could hold me forever?" My blood turned to ice. I opened my mouth to speak, but the line went dead. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Thank you for watching this emotional journey. Margaret's story reminds us that even when people around us are cruel or try to bring us down, courage, love, and truth can give us the power to stand strong. Never underestimate the bravery of those who protect their family, and never ignore the small voices, like Daniel's, that can change everything. This story shows that justice may take time, but patience, wisdom, and faith always win in the end. Let it inspire you to face challenges with strength, to speak up when something is wrong, and to always protect the ones you love. Remember, no matter how dark a moment seems, love and truth can light the way.